No One Left Behind is more than a standard we all live up to. It is a way of life. It is part of our mission. If you or someone you know finds themselves struggling with their mental health, please contact the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline by dialing 988 on your mobile phone or text 838-255 to speak or chat with a qualified counselor. Hello, everyone, and thank you for coming back to the Run for the Wall podcast. If you are returning, and welcome if it's your first time. And is it May yet?
We're so close. Welcome home, everyone. I'm Boots. That's Hitch, who was just talking. And we're so glad that you're joining us again for episode 8 of the Run for the Wall podcast. And no, it's not May yet. We're stuck here in December. It's actually not that cold where I am, but I do have my heater on in the studio. So
yeah, it's pretty chilly here on the East Coast. And also, I want to bring up what we talked about last episode. You know, every day is May.
That's right.
I like that. Every day is May. But in case you're wondering, or if this is your first time joining us, Run for the Wall is the oldest and largest cross-country motorcycle run in support of veterans, prisoners of war, and servicemen and women who made the ultimate sacrifice with their service. And the goal of this podcast is simply to continue raising awareness of our mission while also bringing a sense of community and education on how each one of us can show our support.
Right on. So let's get right into it and introduce our guest here. So who do we have here with us today, Hitch?
Well, I mean, honestly, I don't know what to call him because he's worn so many hats. You know what I mean?
That's for sure.
But we have with us Billie Bugs Dunlap. Currently, he's on the board of directors as our vice president.
That's right.
But I mean, Bugs, you've been route coordinator for Southern. You've been RC for, was it RC for Sandbox as well?
Yes, that's right.
I don't know. I'm sure before you did those, you did some more other stuff too. No,
we'll get into all that.
Yeah, like you've held a lot of hats, and I really can't wait to start digging into your experience with the run. But thank you so much for joining us this episode.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Glad to be here.
Whoop, whoop. This is gonna be fun. All right, so do we have any people to shout out today, Boots?
Absolutely. As always, we want to give a shout out to Fuller Law, to Chad over there at Fuller Law for Riders. And he donates his legal counsel to Run for the Wall and for every year, for several years now. And boy, he's just an invaluable silent team member. So if you or somebody you know has had a motorcycle accident or is in need of legal counsel, please call 1-855-FULLER-LAW. That's FULLERLW. Or you can find them on the internet at fullerlawforriders.com. Also, we want to thank the Greater Ontario Convention and Visitors Bureau for every year when the Run for the Wall starts in Ontario. They really roll out the red carpet for us with their incredible hospitality and accommodations during our opening ceremonies, which is amazing in Ontario, California. And even if you're not coming on the run and just want to come check it out, the Midway route leaves on May 13th. We're getting there. And the Southern and Central route leave on May 14th. And it's a pretty nice send off there in Ontario and Lot D right by the convention center. Also want to give a shout out to our route sponsors, Pepsi and Coca-Cola, for supplying products to us for the hydration trailers that follow the routes on the run. Again, we couldn't do it without them. The hydration trailers follow the routes at all of the gas stops and lunch stops, making sure that the riders have access to cold drinks and snacks and stuff like that. So thank you very much to Pepsi and Coca-Cola. And we couldn't do it without the generosity of the people who support our mission.
Absolutely. Thanks, Boots. All right. So, in Run for the Wall news and events, of course, registration is open. You can head to the website rftw.us to get registered. Let's see. Countdown to the run, as Boots mentioned, midway. You'll prepare to take off on Tuesday, May 13th. Central and Southern routes will head out on Wednesday, May 14th. And that sandbox route will depart on Sunday, May 25th from the Washington, D.C. area. Volunteer signups. If you're interested in volunteering on the run, you can also head to the website and see what positions are open for your route and fill out the form. And then the point of contact, most likely route coordinator or someone will reach out. Okay. To get that coordinated. Let's see here. Oh, hotel and camping lists. So a slight delay, putting some final touches on things, and we're expecting the lists to be released approximately January 10th.
Fingers crossed on that one.
Yep, January 10th, and followed by the route itinerary booklets being released in March, because those are also still being finalized. But you can head over again to the website if you want to see previous routes and stops. Prepaid fuel information will also be released in March.
Yep. And then we have local meetups. So if you're missing your fix of Run for the Wall and you want to meet up with your local Run for the Wall family, we've got meetups all over the country in Northern California, Colorado, Arizona, East Coast, Washington, D.C. area. For more information on that, please go to either forum.rftw.us, that's the official Run for the Wall forum, or check out our events calendar on the Run for the Wall website. Also, as we want to keep mentioning this, just in case somebody hasn't heard, on route communications across all routes on Run for the Wall, we're moving away from using CB radios, and we're moving to a technology called GMRS. It's a better technology. It has greater range, a lot of great things about it that we like, that's going to propel us into the future. So if you want more information about the route communications, again, most of that information is on the forum, and you can find that at forum.rftw.us. And note this, that if you're an FNG, a new rider, you don't have to have a GMRS radio. It's nice to listen in and hear the route communication that's going on. Like when we call out speed changes or lane changes, those are all called out in advance. So you'll know to get ready to do something. You're not going to be keying the mic and talking to anyone, but it is pretty cool to listen in. But again, all that information on the GMRS radios, discounts, what to buy, where to buy, it's all on the official Run for the Wall forum.
Yep, and there are some instructional videos that were done. Pretty Boy did the videos, right?
Yes, he did.
Yeah. So there are instructional videos if you're concerned about how to, I'm guessing, install and that type of thing. And utilize the forum, utilize the Facebook page, or write to us, and we'll have Boots answer in Ted's Tech Tips if you have a question.
That's right.
About the radios. And we
want to hear from you. So if you do have a question or a comment, good, bad, or ugly, let us know.
Yeah. But just note that we do record these episodes in advance. So
usually about 2 weeks in advance.
About 2 weeks in advance. So there may be like a 2-week delay in us answering your question, but we will most certainly get it answered for you. Okay, so on to why we ride. This is our segment where we share a bio of a service member that really depicts our mission and what we're here for. So Boots.
Yeah, I got this. So again, this is why we ride. And it is my honor and privilege to share these with you. And I'll just say again, I say it every time, I always thought that doing this would get easier, and it doesn't. It's difficult, it's emotional, and it's very necessary to tell these stories and remember these heroes who have given the ultimate sacrifice so that we can live in freedom. So today, we remember U.S. Navy Captain Michael Scott Spiker. I put his name up, his picture up on the screen so you can look at it while I read his story. Scott Spiker was born in Kansas City, Missouri on July 12, 1957. When Spiker was 15, his family moved from Jacksonville, Florida, where he attended Nathan Bedford Forrest High School. He graduated from Florida State University in 1980 with a bachelor's degree in accounting and business management. Spiker then joined the U.S. Navy and attended Aviation Officer Candidate School at Naval Air Station, Pensacola, Florida. After flight training at various bases, he was designated as a naval aviator and spent several years flying as both a fleet squadron aviator in the A-7 Corsair II and the FA-18 Hornet, and as a flight instructor in the FA-18. Scott was assigned to Strike Fighter Squadron 81, nicknamed the Sunliners, deploying with Carrier Wing 17 aboard the aircraft carrier USS Saratoga. In the early morning hours of January 17th, 1991, the first night of Operation Desert Storm, Scott Spiker was flying his FA-18 Hornet aircraft approximately 100 miles west of Baghdad at an altitude of 28,000 feet and traveling at 0.92 Mach when his aircraft was struck by a missile fired from an Iraqi MiG-25 aircraft. Spiker's FA-18 crashed in a remote, uninhabited wasteland known as Tulul ad-Dulaim. There were reports he had ejected from the aircraft before it crashed, and sightings and evidence that he may still have been alive after the incident. It was not until August 2009 that his remains were found and identified, and Spiker was finally brought home. Spiker was the first combat casualty for American forces in Operation Desert Storm. Spiker was 33 years old at the time of his death and left behind his wife Joanne and 2 young children. In 2023, Florida State University named its tennis center after Spiker, who was an avid player. Scott Spiker's name can be found on panel 5D, row 34 of the Middle East Conflicts Memorial Wall in Marseilles, Illinois. It is not the worst thing to die in war. It is not the worst thing to be missing in war. The worst thing is to be forgotten in war. Say their names, tell their stories, never, never, ever forget. On behalf of a grateful nation, thank you, Captain Michael Scott Spiker, for your service.
Thank you, Boots.
Thanks.
Bugs, do you have anything to add on top of that?
Yeah, I do. In January of 1991, I was in the VF-24 Renegades Tomcat Squadron as a Rio, and we were on our workups about to deploy for Operation Desert Shield at the time. And we were less than 2 weeks from deploying, and we knew that operations were starting in this first night when Scott went down. I mean, not in a Tomcat Squadron, we didn't, in a different squadron, didn't really know him personally, but he was our brother wearing gold wings. And our workups to go overseas to support this operation became real that night because all of us in the squadron had families ourselves. And you train hard and you prepare to go into the fight, but when somebody goes down at the beginnings of that fight, it really becomes real. So we all did our own soul searching, and it really emboldened us to get over and get into the fight. And if nothing else, avenge our brother. So
Yep.
that really brings back a lot of memories for me and the feelings that as we prepare to deploy overseas. And thank you for choosing Scott. He is the bio that I carry on Sandbox and on the cross country routes as well, because his loss meant so much to me. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So, all right. That, guys, is why we ride. You know, it's not easy, and sometimes it's not fun, but it's important to remember the brave men and women who went before us and what they did and their final acts of courage. So, again, Spike, thank you for your service, and Bugs, I can't wait to hear more about some of the stuff you did. I know we've talked a lot over the years.
Yeah.
We could talk about Goose too, but
Yeah, that's a whole different story.
all right, cool. All right, moving on.
All right, y'all. So next up is customs and traditions. And today we thought that it would be a great idea to talk about the significance of the stops that we make, because we aren't just stopping here for fuel or stopping there for a hot meal that was donated. There's a lot of thought that goes into where our stops are actually mapped out, and they generally have meaning, like VA hospitals, or veterans homes, different memorials. So that's what we wanted to highlight today. Boots.
Yeah, so it's not just, it's important for us to explain that it's not just like pulling into a place for lunch, a venue, and having lunch or breakfast or dinner or whatever, get off your bike and visit with everyone. That's part of it. But another really big part of this is all across the country, on all the routes, we pick stops that are meaningful and significant. So for instance, one of the stops on the central route is in Wentzville, Missouri. And that is the very first Vietnam memorial that was erected in 1967. And the whole route stops there. We gather around. They do a 21 gun salute. We have the high school marching band that plays the national anthem. It is a tradition for the central route to gather around the memorial. We take a big group picture. So that's just one example, but there are plenty of other examples, like stopping at the Flight 93 Memorial on the Sandbox route. There are 9/11 memorials. There are Korean War memorials, Desert Storm, GWAT memorials, Global War on Terror, on all of the routes. And that's a really important part, that this journey that we take from Ontario, California to Washington, D.C. to Marseilles, Illinois, every stop along the way is significant, and every stop along the way we're bringing honor to our veterans, to remember what they did, to remember these conflicts, to remember the struggles, and to remember why we're a free nation and why we're still the best hope.
And one of the things that I want to point out about these stops, we ride for those who can't, but one of the most touching things to me is when we stop somewhere, there are people who come out every year who can't ride for one reason or another. Maybe physically they're not able, or, they're still working, or they can't afford it, what have you. But we also ride for them, and it just feels so good to get to those places year after year and, just say hi to, I don't know, I call them friends. Like, say hi to our friends there in those locations, because that's really meaningful as well.
It really is. And that's another big part of it that I do want to take just a second to mention, is that when we stop at one of these memorials, there are a lot of locals who come out to see the Run for the Wall, because it's publicized locally in many of the towns leading up to the run. So we'll pull into a town in Indiana and we'll have some locals come out. And I was actually standing there one year with Ross Curry, who is the one who told me about Run for the Wall. And a lady walked up to us, an elderly lady, and she handed Ross an envelope with a note and a card in there and a picture. And it was her husband, who had since passed, who had gone on Run for the Wall. And she asked Ross to take that to the apex of the wall for her as her husband's last run. And he did that. And and set it at the apex, her husband's picture, and the note took a picture of it with his phone and texted it back to this woman to let her know that her husband made it to the apex of the wall. And that's a very emotional thing. That again, that's why we ride. That's why we do this every single year.
Yeah, we talk about the Run for the Wall family a lot. And we, our first thought is the people we ride with, the people that are on the road with us, and we see at every stop. But, all the supporters along the way, they're family too. They're supporting the mission, even if they're not on a bike, because they are part of the family. So
Absolutely.
We think of those people. We think of the Run for the Wall family. We've got to encompass that too, because they're supporters just as much as anybody that throws their leg over a bike.
Yep.
And I think one of my favorite stops was the VA hospital, and going around to those rooms and the veterans who are literally in beds and unable to get up and walk out of their rooms and come down, and just sitting with them and visiting with them. Like that means a lot.
And you know what is also remarkable about that is I had gone into a room with Bruce Bartolomeo, and we had visited. Yeah, okay, you might have been there. There are a few of us. I can't remember. My memory.
We're probably in the same group.
We sat there and talked to this veteran for quite a while. We held his hand. We prayed with him. We walked out of that room, and one of the nurses said, "You know what? You're the only people who ever visit him. He doesn't get any visitors the whole year, except for when Run for the Wall comes through." That just broke my heart.
Not us having the same stories, Boots. We can't have the same stories. No.
Well, you were there.
Yeah, and that was awesome. Oh man, my heart. But yes, that's the significance of the stops that we make. So know that when you join this journey, like if this is your first time listening, or you're an FNG, we're not just riding, stopping. You know what I mean? It's not ride, bathroom break, ride, eat, ride. Like, it's not, and that's why we ask that question, like, how do you prepare emotionally? Because this is that is a big part. When we stop and we roll in, like, you're impacting lives, and those lives will impact you as well.
Oh yeah, it's so true. And I think it was Roger Mead, cowboy, who used to ride with us, who said, he said a lot of things. He said the Run for the Wall will take your breath away. And it really does. It's not like any other motorcycle ride or run that you would ever go on. It truly takes your breath away.
Yeah, Cowboy's still active. He doesn't go all the way anymore, but he and Sam are joining us on the Southern Route.
Hey,
awesome.
What did you teach me, Boots? One leg, one day, or all the way?
That's right.
As you come out. I love that so much.
Yep.
But speaking of taking breath away, let's get into what about Run for the Wall took Bugs's breath away? What got him locked into this thing? So we really don't have like a special topic today or anything, because Bugs has done so much within Run for the Wall. So we're just going to compile all of that knowledge and grill you on our question. No.
Okay. Standing by.
No, but honestly, how were you initially introduced to Run for the Wall, and when was that?
It was around 2010, 2009 or 10 or so. Stoney, Jim Stone. I know you know Stoney.
We know Stoney.
I was worked with him at Lockheed Martin here in Fort Worth, Texas. I live in Weatherford now, but some people had introduced me to Stoney, and learned about the run, and had intended to do it for a couple of years. And then finally, what happened is I got orders and a new job in Maryland. Moved from Texas to Maryland to
what part of
River
Maryland?
Naval Air Station.
Pax River?
Yes, I
You
was at Pax River for 8 years.
you know I live in Maryland, Bugs. I didn't
Yes, I
know.
do. So in May of 2011, my youngest daughter, was getting married. And we were in the process of moving to Maryland. And I didn't want to ship my bike. So the timing worked out that my daughter got married on a Saturday, and the run was coming through that Saturday. But I couldn't, get off at Grand Prairie that day and out of the wedding. So the day after my daughter's wedding on a Saturday, I was ready to go. I did an iron butt from Fort Worth, Texas to Wytheville, Virginia, and joined the run there. And then joined in from Wytheville to Maryland, and that's how I got my bike to Maryland. And then for the next few years, I did parts of the run, extending further and further until 2015, when Stoney became RC of Southern Route. I said, Stoney, I'm going all the way with you. And that year, before that year, we really didn't have the direct assistant to the RC, somebody to watch his timing and make sure he ate and all that stuff. So I became Stoney's gopher, I guess. But I was his go boy. So I rode all the way across with Stoney and made sure he stayed on time and made sure he ate and drank water and helped him keep on schedule. And at that time, I also got my first hat when I was a tail gunner. And I think we talked to Big Red a few podcasts ago. He was my first platoon leader. So I was
Cool.
I think it was Big Red. Anyway, I was tail gunner in first platoon and just took off from there.
Nice. So why do you ride, or who do you ride for?
Well, it's partially for Scott, like I'd mentioned before,
Right.
because that was a turning point. And I'd been in the military. I started off in 1981 as an Army infantry soldier in an 81 millimeter mortar platoon, and eventually found my way to acceptance into the Aviation Officer Candidate School program, like Scott Spiker did in Pensacola, Florida. So I went through the same school there, and then on to flight school and wings. But all of that, you're focused so hard on training and passing tests and learning everything you can, that the fact that you're going to take this weapon system into places where people are going to not like you very much, it takes a turning point to make that real. And that as I'm working up, and I was on the USS Nimitz, and we were doing carrier qualifications and just making sure our weapons and our swords were honed to the sharpest tip we could make them. And then Scott went down, and everybody stood back and said, "Yeah, this is real, and we're heading into bad guy land." And we did. But besides that, my father was an Air Force airman.
Okay.
My father-in-law was an Army Sergeant First Class. In fact, he was in the unit that I joined when I enlisted. I like to tell people, he said, "Yeah, you can marry my daughter if you enlist in the Army." I said, "Oh, well, okay." But that's not exactly true. And my uncle was an Army soldier in Korea.
Okay.
My brother was an Army infantryman. My nephew was in the Army as well, a helicopter crewmaster or crewman. So, my family has been revolved around military service, and it was just a natural extension for me. So I've got a lot of people that, and my first motorcycle ride was on the back of a 56 Harley Hydroglide. I think it was Hydroglide, with my uncle. So, and my dad rode and my brother rode. So, the intertwining of the motorcycle life and the military life was just natural for me. And when I got my first taste of Run for the Wall with Stoney, I was hooked instantly. There was no way I was going to get away from it.
Yeah, the way you described it you were able to meet up in Virginia and come the rest of the way. And you said every year, because so how many times have you been every year since 2015?
All the way, yes. Every year since 15.
Okay. Yeah.
And what routes?
Southern and Sandbox.
Okay.
So yeah, I've been hooked into Southern since I started, and then when Sandbox started up, I've gone every year. I didn't make the recon run. That was my Southern Route RC year.
Okay.
Right.
But I was, of course, RC for the inaugural run, and I've been on every one since.
You know what? I'm going to start doing run assignments. I'm going to tell people what route they're going on. That's what I'm going to do. No.
Just like platoon assignments.
I have a no leg to stand on with only being on Central Route. All right, so tail gunner, route coordinator. Are those
yeah, I was.
What else? What else have you done?
So I was tail gunner, and that was 15. I was a tail gunner I was assistant platoon leader for 3rd Platoon Southern Route in 16 when my good buddy and brother Chad Slacker was
I need
going
to
to
hear
be
about
RC.
this name.
I mean, he was going to be 3rd Platoon leader. So a couple of weeks before the run, he got in an accident and broke his collarbone. So I was asked to step up into 3rd Platoon leader. So did that. So I really never executed a run as APL. I stepped up as platoon leader, 3rd Platoon. Next year I was 1st Platoon. And that was 17. Then 18, Slacker's RC year on Southern Route, I was his ARC. So 17 into 18, I was ARC. 19, I was RC for Southern Route. And then 20 through 22, I was RC for Sandbox Route.
Yeah, that was the long RC year.
Yes. So that was 3 years. So I hold the record as being the longest running RC on a Run for the Wall, because I was RC for Southern Route for a year and Sandbox for 3.
Yep.
So 4 years as RC.
So Bugs, question. How did you make the transition to being on the board of directors? How did you end up over here? I'm sure we all have a story. I'll tell mine one day.
Well, after my RC 3 years on Sandbox, I felt like there was more I could do, that I wanted to continue to serve in a capacity that was supported the mission, the riders, and the routes. So I applied for the board and was accepted in 22, starting into 23. So I felt, for me, a lot of people will come to an organization or the run and they want to be a part of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been a part of a lot of organizations, but I've hardly ever just been someone that hangs on and rides in the pack. I've tried to extend my service into supporting the mission of that organization, and this one is just the mission is in my heart. So this is the one that I focus on for many years now, and for me, it was a natural extension to try and give back more, to do more, and to help support this mission from beginning to end. And now it's year round.
Yeah. For people listening in, I mean, first of all, if you know it or you don't know it, all 3 of us are on the board right now.
Mm-hmm.
And we live Run for the Wall pretty much every day.
Every day is May.
That's right.
I mean, there are issues that go on year round, board issues, and just keeping this thing going, and the email chain and just talking with everybody. It's a lot of work. So, and I do want to acknowledge you, Bugs, because when you came on the board of directors, boards change and dynamics change. But when you came onto the board of directors, your professionalism, your clear thinking, it really brought in a breath of fresh air. And I think it was you and others who came onto the board, it actually made quite a difference. So I'm glad you're on the board of directors, and thank you for serving, because I know it's a thankless job and sometimes it's a big headache. So,
and thank
I
you all for
appreciate
sharing that, because I think it will encourage others who know that the mission is in their hearts too, and they feel that they would like to do more. Like, it's within arm's reach.
Yes,
So,
it is.
yeah.
like, all you have to do is apply.
Yeah, I like to say that the run is on the road, but the mission's in the heart, and
Yeah.
your heart's with you year round. So
For
that's
sure.
why every day is May.
Yeah. Okay, so one of my favorite questions to ask is, how do you prepare yourself physically, and how do you prepare yourself emotionally for the run every year?
Well, physically, I could probably do better.
Yeah, couldn't we all, right?
So, yeah. Well, I'm currently still an engineer at Lockheed Martin, and engineers aren't going out carving metal to make airplanes. What I'm doing is mostly in front of a computer screen, so a lot of my time is spent sitting down. But I'm happy to I guess announce here, I've announced at work that I'll be retiring from Lockheed Martin in January, so I'll have more time to prepare physically.
All right. Well, congratulations on your retirement. Yeah.
Thank you. So I think that you don't have to be a bodybuilder to ride a motorcycle, but you do need to be in good shape, because there are stressful situations we get into. So at least walking, some mild calisthenics, stretching and stuff to make your body ready for the long hours of sitting. So I guess in one respect, my job as an engineer, sitting a lot makes me ready, but the hard part is getting off the bike when the joints don't want to move. So stretching, moving, and preparing yourself physically is very important. And mentally, it's been a challenge. Like I mentioned, from 2017, being an ARC is fully engulfing yourself in the run, and then from then on, transitioning to the board. Every year, the run is in me every day, and I'm doing something for it almost every day. So, and it's easy to get caught up into the mechanical movements of trying to do things that operationally, administratively support the run and prepare to make it happen. So I do remind myself to say their names and to think about the mission. And speaking of the mission, to always remember the original mission was to highlight the fact that we had prisoners of war alive in Vietnam in 1989 when Gunny started this. And our original mission statement was to remember them and remind the government that we need to bring them home. And we have transitioned that into the efforts of the DPAA to find the remains of the loved ones that are still missing, in our huge win last year with Karen's father.
Amazing. Yes, that was amazing. And the emotion for that is so strong. For those of you who are listening, just take us back to 1989 for a moment, when Gunny and everybody started the very first run for the wall. The emotion was so high about our mission for bringing about a full accountability for all POWs and MIA soldiers. The shirt, the original Run for the Wall shirt, on the back, it said in big, bold letters, "Bring them home or send us back."
Exactly.
Yeah. So that is the Run for the Wall mission, and the emotion is still that high, even though maybe not send us back in a different capacity, to find the remains, to find out their stories, to find out what happened, and to bring that peace to their loved ones, to their family members.
Yeah, and luckily, or not luckily, I think a lot due to our efforts, to the efforts of Rolling Thunder and others like us, that DPAA is alive and active and searching for those remains to answer those questions for the families.
Yeah.
So the answer to emotionally get ready, that's how I do that. But my biggest emotional preparation to be ready for the run is my 3-day ride from home to California, where I like, even if I'm riding in a group, and I'll stay with a small group of people that are close to me, that time on the road is where I center myself. I bit my mind to completely focused on the mission and what's ahead.
Yep.
So that's my emotional preparation. That's my church for the run, if you might call it that, where I'm sitting in that pew behind the handlebars, praying and thinking about what's ahead and how I'm going to be a part of it.
Yeah, helmet time.
Yep.
Yeah.
Let's see. What do we have next?
How about a favorite run for the wall stop or experience?
Why is that funny?
Because every day on the run is a celebration and every stop is my favorite stop.
Yeah.
But there are a few highlights, and others have mentioned how Withville is a coming home for us, and that leads into the D-Day Memorial up in Virginia too. But when I was RC, what's one thing that stands out for me is the RC always makes some comments and introduces people at different various sites like that, and I had a welling of emotion there in Withville at the With Park on the day we arrived, when I realized that we talked about sacred ground, and it's not, sacred ground is what we make it, what we bring to it. It's a place that individuals feel in their heart is important to them and their memories and things that they keep alive in their memory. So I talked about how that park was sacred ground for me in one respect, because that very park is where I joined the run the first time, where I met the family and where I started to understand the mission. And so that when I ride into With Park in Withville, Virginia, I'm riding into sacred ground, and it means something to me. So that's when I get there into With Park on Southern Route, I feel like each year I've come full circle, because that's where I started. So all those other places are important, and love being there and seeing the family. But With Park is the place that is where I reboot every year.
All right. What about best meal on the run?
About what?
Best meal. What is your favorite meal?
Every meal is a banquet. So
isn't it?
Yes, it is.
We get fed well on the run.
Yes,
I can't deny that.
No, but it's funny how he put that, because most places we go, it's basically they set it up. It's like going to a banquet.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, they roll out the red carpet for us for sure.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, I am the definition of a carnivore. So I love meat. So bring me a steak and I am very happy. But I'll tell you also, I'm a Southern boy, so fried catfish, I just cannot get enough. So there's a couple places on the run where they feed us a fried catfish meal, going across the South through Mississippi and Alabama and Louisiana. That's the home of fried catfish.
Bugs, where are you from?
Texas too.
Where are you from originally?
I grew up in South Arkansas, in a little town called ForThe, Arkansas, where my mother and my brother and sister still live.
Because the way you say Mississippi, I'm like, yep, definitely from the South.
Oh yeah.
All right. What do you ride currently?
I ride a 22 CVO Road Glide Limited.
It's beautiful. Black and yellow.
I love that bike. Yes.
I love your bike. Your bike is a beautiful bike.
Thank you.
And what I like about your bike is when we were road guarding together last year on Sandbox, I could always see you coming in my mirrors, because that black and yellow. Nobody's got a black and yellow bike but you.
Yeah.
Okay, so follow-up question. Boots, did you wear that shirt intentionally today, or?
No,
it's black and yellow.
Totally random. Totally random.
Yeah, the bike's color is called Sunburst Yellow, and it's a light metallic, and you get that thing in the sun, and it just is beautiful. So I've kind of become fond of yellow. I see this, and
watch,
and phone case. So
Wow.
I love it. I
I've
love
kind
it.
of meandered my way toward being yellow.
Nothing wrong with that. And honestly, to be on a motorcycle, it's visible. So
Mhm.
I like it.
Plus, that CVO is just hot. I love that bike. That's the best bike I've ever ridden.
Yep.
So we actually skipped a question. Do you want to do? Yeah, I skipped you, Boots. Sorry, you were supposed to
Oh, you
ask him
did.
about his.
I got it. I got it. I got it. I got it. So, what we know your road name is Bugs.
Yeah.
But you gotta tell us about this. How did that come about?
I've had that name. It was my call sign in the Navy. So in the Navy, when all this time when I was getting ready to go on cruise, I'd gone through officer candidate school, flight school, and was assigned to my first squadron, the BF-24 Renegades, assigned to the USS Nimitz. So I was a Lieutenant JG in 02 at the time. And the junior officers, the 01 through 03s, stand duty officer in the ready room on the squadron at deployed running the flight schedule. So they're making sure that people that are on the flight schedule know that their brief times and just making sure that the squadron personnel are ready and the airplanes are ready and just essentially running the operation of the squadron through the day. But the most important job is to have a movie ready at the end of the day to show in the ready room when the skipper comes in and sits down and says, roll them. So when I was growing up, you go to the movie theater, they don't just, they didn't roll 25 minutes worth of previews and advertisements like they do now. They show a cartoon. So being the big Bugs Bunny fan that I am, I had my Bugs Bunny cartoon collection. So we had this big giant laser projection TV that ran off of VCRs because we didn't have DVDs then in 1991. So when the skipper sat down and said, roll them, I pushed out a Bugs Bunny cartoon. But Bugs Bunny cartoons are so diverse, I would pick one that had something to do with an event of the day that, kind of went to a theme of something that happened that day. And so I'd roll that cartoon and everybody loved it. And then we went on to the movie. And we'd show things like Braveheart, motivational, strong movies like that. It was really good. But I started people started calling me Bugs, and it's stuck ever since. So that's how I got it.
That's good. It fits. It totally fits.
Thanks.
That is so cute. All right. Advice for FNGs.
Advice for FNGs.
Mm-hmm.
That's one I knew was coming. So I think the best advice for an FNG is to don't bring any preconceived notions. Okay. That, when I came to the run the first time in 2011, I'd been riding motorcycles for 35 years. Mm-hmm. I was a retired U.S. Navy captain. Well, I wasn't retired at the time. I had 1,300 hours flying fighters. I felt like I had a lot of worldly experience in different stressful situations. But you come to this run and it's completely new. There's things you're going to see, experience, and learn from interacting with fellow patriots is going to touch you. So there's a U.S. Navy SEAL named Chad Wright who has 3 aspects of life. He says to be successful. And the first says to be patient. So advice to FNGs coming in is you're going to bring a lot of ideas about what you're looking for or what's going to happen, and it's going to be different for you, but you'll settle in because there's going to be a lot of people around that love you, and you're going to get a lot of hugs, like we've said before. But be patient as you settle in, and look around and learn from what you see. Mm-hmm. The next thing is to be present. So there's a lot of things you're going to see that may take you back, may make you look forward, but you've got to be present in the moment in order to gather them all in and let them have the effect on you that they really need to have. And if it takes you back to some place that's hurtful or dark, there's plenty of people around you that have been through the same thing, and you've just got to let people reach out to you and help, because we're all there to support you along the mission. And the last thing is to be deliberate. And that means that there's going to be times you're on the road when there's going to be things going through your mind, but you've got to be deliberate in your emotions and your actions and your knowing what you're doing to stay there and be safe with what you're doing and what everybody is doing, whatever other people are doing around you. It's a very dynamic environment. And if your actions aren't deliberate, then you can be falling behind your bike, be falling behind the situation, and find yourself in some dangerous position. So
Oh, that's great. Yeah, great advice.
Thank you.
Is the advice the same for all riders, or do you have different advice for all
A
riders?
lot of that is the same. You know, people that come in with the experience and have been on the run before know what they're heading into. And they've, this massive group riding environment. You know, when I was, before I went on the run, I was in a group here in Fort Worth. We called the Cowtown Flyers, just a motorcycle riding group. We didn't call ourselves a club or anything. We were just a group of people that got together and rode and had a good time. And I led a lot of those rides. And I think the biggest ride I had was 18 bikes riding behind me, going down the road to some memorial or have lunch or something. Then I get out on the road as an RC on Southern Route and I look in my mirror and there's 500 motorcycles behind me. It's quite the change in experience. But in those same vein of thought, you've got to be patient, you've got to be present, and you got to be deliberate in what you do. And I think that applies to any rider in any position, whether you're in the pack, in an advanced group, ambassador, whatever you're doing, you be in that moment and make the best out of it for yourself and everybody around you.
Yeah, that's awesome. Great advice. I love that. So, Bugs, tell us, what are your plans for 2025 for the run? What route, what position, what are you going to be doing?
Well, I've kind of settled on the job that I like the most. And on Southern Route, I'm planning to be on the road guard team.
Mm-hmm.
And I was going to be a road guard again on Sandbox, but I think I've found a better position for me because my wife's going to ride with me on Sandbox.
Oh, cool.
Can't do that as a road guard. So
Nope.
I talked to Cobb and said, "Hey, Cobb, now I've got some platoon leader experience. Would you consider me to be your support platoon leader?" And he said, "Yep, come on in." So I'm slotted to be his support platoon leader, and I'll have my wife with me. So I think that's going to be a great run.
So she's flying in. She's flying in to
if one of our daughters come, they're probably going to drive up and partly follow us on Southern Route up to DC.
Okay.
And then start riding into on Sandbox.
Awesome.
Maybe even ride some legs on Southern. We've got a lot of friends that she could jump on with too.
That would be fun. All righty. So that brings us to Tech Tips with Ted. What do we have this episode for Tech Tips?
Okay, so I just want to slow down for a minute and talk about brakes. Ooh, sorry, that was bad. That was really bad.
Dad joke.
Yeah, but brakes, they just slow you down anyways, right? So why talk about them? Oh, the hits just keep on coming. No. As always, I have a visual
I'll be here
aid.
all week. Try the veal.
Yeah, right. I want to talk about brakes because brakes are really important on a motorcycle. And I want to particularly talk only about the front brake today. I'm not saying the back brake isn't important. It is, but the front brake is even more important. And most riders street riders, because I have to make a distinction between racing and street riding. But most street riders really, even though they have tens of thousands of miles under their belt, don't know how to use the front brake. And the front brake does way more than just slow your motorcycle down. But for starters, let's talk about slowing a motorcycle down. So I have seen, back in the day, I worked as a mechanic at a motorcycle dealership. And I've seen motorcycles come in for 20,000 mile service, 30,000 mile service, 40,000 mile service. And I get in, I inspect the front brakes, and I'm like, okay, these brakes look like the brake pads are brand new. This bike's got 20,000 miles on, and these brakes have never been used. I look at the back brake, and it's smoked. Here's a rider who's riding a lot and only using the back brake. So the problem with that is when a motorcycle brakes, so much weight goes to the front end that you can literally do 99.9% of the braking with the front brake. There's been this notion going around almost forever that if you use your front brake heavily, you can flip the motorcycle. That is very, very rare. I'm not saying it can't happen. I've seen it happen on the racetrack, but on the street, you're way more likely to slide the front tire before you'll flip your bike, especially on a touring bike. And now the touring bikes have ABS, so you'll get into that ABS. The point, though, is even on street rides, I have seen incidences happen that didn't have to happen because the rider only used the back brake, had locked up the back tire, or got into the ABS and wasn't able to stop the bike. If that rider had instead used the front brake, that would have just been a panic stop and everyone would have ridden away instead of having, several bike incident. So the point is to learn how to use your front brake. Learn how to use it to not only stop the bike, but to set the attitude of the motorcycle. Because when you use your front brake going into a turn, you want to be very light on that front brake, lighter, longer. We don't ever grab the front brake. We don't stab the front brake. You want to squeeze it very gently, and you can set the attitude of the motorcycle to load the front tire as you head into a turn, and that sets the whole attitude of a motorcycle. I know a lot of riders who have experience. If you're going up a canyon road, uphill, you always have more confidence going up. Why is that? Because the front end is naturally compressed, the forks compress. That gives the bike a more adequate geometry to handle a turn. But then when you're going down the same canyon road, you don't have that same level of confidence because the bike doesn't naturally compress. However, if you learn to use that front brake to load the front end as you're going into these turns, trail braking all the way into the apex of the turn, you will change the geometry of the bike so it feels the same as when you're going up a hill. And you can take those turns with more confidence without the front tire sliding. It really changes the whole attitude of the bike. There's a lot more that is on this topic that I could go into, but I want to keep it brief. And the seed I want to plant is to get out and learn to use your front brake. Do it in a safe spot, in a parking lot, or even better yet, enroll in a class that will teach you how to properly use that front brake. One of the best classes I've taken is the Yamaha Champions School of Riding, YCRS. They really teach this over a 2-day period with certified coaches walking you through the process of how to use a front brake. And I'll tell you this, in, 40 years of racing, all types of different racing, from motocross to road racing to supermoto to flat track. Well, flat track bikes don't have front brakes, but we'll leave them out of this for now. The best riders that I have ridden with, the fastest riders, even on the street, the best riders, the safest riders are the ones who are a master of the front brake. So there you go. Brakes. Get to know your front brake. And that is Ted's tech tip for today.
Thanks.
If I could add real quick, I once took a racing course for cruisers at Eagle Canyon Raceway north of here, Fort Worth here. And that's what they leaned on, man. And it was awesome. And it is changed the way I rode from that day forward. And every day you got to think about that. That is awesome tech tip.
Yep. Great.
All right. So this episode, we don't have any listener letters, but I have been looking at the comments that have been left on our YouTube channel, and I can definitely see that you all are watching the podcast. You all are enjoying the podcast and sending us thank yous and letting us know that this is informative. But yeah, don't, like we talked about earlier, don't hesitate to reach out to us. Like, this is very much you all's podcast, and we want to hear from you all. But since we don't have a letter, I just wanted to double back and ask Bugs, is there anything that you would like to talk about or go over that we did not discuss or that you didn't get to share this episode?
I think if I'm thinking about closing remarks or final thoughts, that always go back to the mottos that RCs have had across the years. And the first one that really, in my experience, that really caught on was from Sony, when he said, "Continue the mission, Charlie Mike."
Mm-hmm.
And that one has become a motto for everyone across all the routes, I think. But there's been others. I can remember Slacker was Ride with Heart, where we talk about the heart missions in the heart, and you bring that out when you're on the road. And mine was Together We Ride. And I always thought that we talk about why we ride, and what was it? We ride for those who can't.
Mm-hmm.
Is why we ride. And the fact that if you think about the roadways in America, they are all tied together. So if you think about the asphalt that's on the road, all across the country, all roads lead to all roads. So wherever you go, when you're on the road, together we ride. And I think I think about that whenever I get on the road, that if any of us are any on the road at the same time, we're riding together because our hearts are tied, and they're tied through this mission. So I'm looking forward to seeing my Run for the Wall family in Ontario at every stop along the way, and all the way through Washington, D.C., and into Marseille for the Sandbox route. So thank you. Thank you for having me today. I've really enjoyed talking with you, and I always love talking about the run and the mission and what it means to me and the people that we serve along the way.
Thanks,
Right
Bugs.
on. Yeah, thanks, Bugs. We really appreciate you coming on and sharing. And we didn't get to talk about Goose, but we'll save
another time.
Another time. There's a good story behind that. So if you want to hear more, you're just going to have to come on Run for the Wall and sit down with us at one of the hotel stops at night, and where we chat and tell stories, tell lies, and other fun stuff that we do.
That and many other sea stories.
That's right. That's right. All right, everybody. So thanks for tuning in. For more information on Run for the Wall, visit the official Run for the Wall website at rftw.us. And, we just thank you for listening. And if you've got questions, that's your thing, Hitch. Why don't you tell us how to contact us?
Like, send us your experiences on the run, topics you'd like to hear, and any questions that you have. You can reach us at pod@rftw.us. That's POD. So pod@rftw.us. And that's all we have this episode. So until next time, y'all. How far are we going?
All the way.
All the way.